for tuning in today. My name is Kristen Murphy Coates. I am going to present to you a lesson plan involving students with severe disabilities, and this lesson plan is on comparing and contrasting. The class in this case is a 5th grade resource classroom. It is an English language arts classroom, and it has 6 students, 2 of which have severe disabilities. The reading abilities in this classroom range from 1st to 4th grade. The focus student for this classroom is a student who did or who was eligible for special education and related services. For the initial eligibility testing for this student, she scored on social skill level, age 6 to 7. For functional ability level, she was age 3 to 5. She did score below average on cognitive ability, verbal comprehension, and nonverbal skill, and then also below average on reading and math ability. Her ability in writing was actually unable to be taken because probably for a lack of interest in writing. She did refuse to write for this assessment, and it's not the first time that that's happened in classes, and certainly not the last time either. The learning standard that I used for this lesson is the Arkansas English Language Arts Standard. Of course, that's from the Arkansas Department of Education from 2016. For this standard, students are to compare and contrast 2 or more characters, settings, or events in a story or drama, drawing on specific details in the text. So for our focus student, for her goal, when given 2 texts, focus learner will be able to compare and contrast the reading selections with 60% accuracy by the end of the lesson. For her objective, given 2 first grade level texts and educator support, the focus learner will be able to compare and contrast the reading selections with 60% accuracy by the end of the lesson. Introduction of this plan, I really think that this is going to be a fun activity for the kids. At the beginning of the year, whenever I sent out the student interest surveys, I also asked parents to send me a picture of things that the kids enjoyed. So I really wanted a picture of the students' pets if they had one, and then also maybe a picture of the students' favorite toy or favorite food or something of that nature. So for this project or for this activity, I'm going to start by projecting pictures of 2 of the students' pets. So I may, for example, have a picture of Sam's dog and a picture of Lucy's cat. Then I'm going to ask students to raise their hand and to identify something that is the same or something that is different about these 2 pictures. I will write those similarities and differences on the board, and I'm just going to write those in a 3-column chart. So we may have a column for Sam's pet, a column for Lucy's pet, and then a column for both pets. A lot of people would probably actually go ahead and start on a Venn diagram here. I am not going to go that route. We are going to get to Venn diagrams, but I don't want to do that on this first lesson. I think that it will really benefit our kids if they start just to understand and to grasp the concept of compare and contrast without having to understand a Venn diagram at this time as well. So after we go through and the students give me some similarities and differences, and I give them feedback on whether that was indeed a similarity or a difference, then I'm going to ask students to get out a pencil, a green highlighter, and a yellow highlighter. And meanwhile, I'll pass out the graphic organizer. In some instances, I won't pass out the graphic organizers, but it really just depends on our day. We've got some students in the class who maybe they need to have a job, and so if we're having a rough day and they need to pass out the graphic organizers or help in some other way, then certainly that can be done as well. So now about the graphic organizer. On our graphic organizer, we have the words compare and contrast at the top. That For under both of those, we have a space for students to write the definitions and any other notes that they deem appropriate or that I do during this lesson. Also, we have a text selection that describes two people. We also have a text selection that describes two settings. For this lesson, I'm going to use the I do, we do, you do method. And so, for example, for our word compare, I'm going to introduce that word and I'm going to give students the definition of it. And then I'm going to write the definition on my graphic organizer, which is going to be projected on the board. I will also highlight the word compare in yellow. Then I will stop and ask the students to do the same. So they will also write the definition and highlight the word compare in yellow. We'll then move on to the word contrast, and we'll do the same thing. So I will write the definition for contrast and I will highlight it in green. Then I will ask the students to do the same. Next, for the text selection describing two people, I'm going to ask students to put down their pencils and their highlighters, and I'm just going to ask them to watch and listen to me silently. And so I will go through our text selection. I will read first both selections, and then we'll go back. I will go back and I will compare them, and I'll find our similarities and our differences. I'll talk about those and I will highlight them appropriately in either green or yellow. Next, I'll ask the students to pick up their highlighter and for them to follow what I did on theirs, also under the text selection for people. I really like this method because I like for students to be able to listen and to write and to think separately. Students with intellectual disabilities or with learning disabilities can't often write and listen at the same time. Their brains just don't work like that. So I really want them to grasp this, so we're going to do it with the I do, we do, you do method. Also, under student responsibilities, they are going to be responsible for writing the definition, like I said, of compare and contrast. They will be also responsible for highlighting the word compare and all similarities in yellow, and then same for contrast with green. For the lesson activity, students are going to be paired in same ability groups. They will also be given texts that are appropriate for the individual reading level. A lot of our students just happen to have similar reading levels, and so it works out that I can pair students up well here. One of our same ability groups is going to be both of our students with severe disabilities, and that will be very helpful for us educators to be able to come to them and to really work on these individual skills. Also, students will perform the same activity as I modeled previously. And so they will, after they've watched me, for the I do, and then we've done it together to highlight and find comparison and contrast, and they will do this in their activity. And lastly, they are going to complete 5, or they should complete 5 of these problems with 80% accuracy by the end of the lesson. For accommodations, we will have a paraprofessional checking for understanding and assisting each pair of students as needed. I'm going to ask that paraprofessional, however, not to start with the students with severe disabilities. That's going to be my job. I'm going to go to those students first, and I'm going to check their understanding of compare and contrast. If they do not understand, then I will go back and I'll provide scaffolding. I will reteach the information. For our scaffolding, I'm going to use some different items to really get the point across. I'm going to start with some tangible items. So maybe I'll use a red solo cup and a purple solo cup. And then we'll move on to pictures once they understand with our tangible items. From then we'll move on to simple phrases like red shoes and black shoes. Tell me let's compare and let's contrast. And then from there we can move on to some more some longer texts, and I think that they'll end up understanding by the end of it. Students without the ability or the interest to write, so for example, our focus student, will have the option of completing the assignment on the computer. This assignment is really not, the purpose of this assignment rather is not to identify that they are able to highlight. Really the purpose is for them to grasp, compare and contrast. So if working on a computer is not feasible that day, that's okay. One of ours, the educator, myself, or a paraprofessional can certainly go through and ask the questions and let the student respond, and the educator then make the note on a checklist or something for the student. So again, we're really trying to gauge what the student knows and doesn't know. Benefits to the focused learner in this lesson would be that they can practice communication. So they can practice listening to the teacher and to students, and then they can practice listening to a conversation between them. They can also participate in that conversation. So they'll have some social interaction in the paired activity as well as with the educator. It also allows for both parties, both the student and for the educators, to practice with a communication device. This device is fairly new for this student. It's only been introduced earlier in the year, and it's really helped with homework so far. And so I think that this is going to be great practice for both students and educators. Finally, this lesson teaches a skill that is used in future lessons in this class and then of course beyond. So like I already hit on, we're going to move on to a Venn diagram later on in the next few days after this lesson. And then also compare and contrast is just a huge skill that they use for essays and for different classes, for different assignments. And so this is really a foundational skill. I really appreciate you tuning in and listening to this today and watching my presentation. As you know, if you're watching, the focus learner and the classroom in this lesson plan are fictional, and it's for the purposes of course number 13751 at Arkansas State University. I really appreciate Dr. Neal and Mrs. Breckenridge and all of our other AAs and educators, instructors, professors for leading this class. I know it's been kind of a crazy time in our world, and it's been crazy for all of us. And so I just thank you for all of your hard work and your dedication to us, and for patience too. I think we've all needed patience this year. So thank you again. Thanks for tuning in, and you guys have a great summer. Bye-bye.